My God, I hate drugs.
Good evening, I'm David Santos. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday. The 10 Southeast Asian nations reaffirm unity as the 34th ASEAN Summit in Thailand comes to a close today. The 10 member states, the Philippines, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. In a statement, the summit's chairman, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, says concerns on the maritime dispute in the South China Sea were discussed. He adds the regional bloc emphasized the importance of non-militarization and self-restraint in the conduct of all activities by claimants and all other states. Presidential spokesman Sal Panelo confirms that President Duterte expressed disappointment over the delay in the negotiations of the Code of Conduct on the South China Sea. Last night, he met with Indonesian President Joko Widodo on the sidelines of the summit. A joint press release says the two leaders welcomed the completion of the requirements for an agreement on the delimitation of the exclusive economic zones of their two countries. The statement adds the agreement promotes deeper cooperation in the maritime sectors of the Philippines and Indonesia. It is expected to come into force this year. Mr. Duterte's cabinet secretaries and their Indonesian counterparts were present at the bilateral meeting. Now, still on the ASEAN summit, President Duterte wants to enhance the skills of workers in Southeast Asia. He says ASEAN members need the support of the region's business sector to achieve this goal. He stressed the importance of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council as the fourth industrial revolution threatens to reshape the world through artificial intelligence and robotics. Trade officials from the Philippines and Indonesia vowed to narrow the trade gap between the two countries and expand their economic partnership. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez says the imbalance is in favor of Indonesian exports. In their meeting on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, the trade officials agreed to push for more Philippine products entering the Indonesian market. This would include agricultural-based produce such as bananas and shallots, as well as industrial products like auto parts. They also discussed the importance of importation of Indonesian coffee. Now, more business fora and activities are in the pipeline between the Philippines and Indonesia to help promote trade.
I invite you to ride on the momentum of Philippine growth story and invest especially in the new industrial destinations of Metro Manila, Pampanga, Clark, Cebu, Bohol, and Davao. The Philippines build is in full swing, and you are all welcome to participate. We are making significant headway in transforming the Philippines into a more stable and secure place for investments.
Also in the summit, leaders committed to resolve plastic pollution in the ocean. The 10 members of the regional bloc on Saturday addressed the marine debris problem in Bangkok. Under the measure, the countries promised to strengthen action both at the national level and through collaborative efforts to reduce marine debris. A report by an environmental campaigner, Ocean Conservancy, tagged ASEAN members like Indonesia and the Philippines as two of the world's top maritime polluters, along with China. President Duterte is expected to be back home from Thailand tonight. President Duterte is disappointed with the delay in the negotiations for a code of conduct in the South China Sea. In a statement, presidential spokesman Sal Panelo says Mr. Duterte raised the issue at the ASEAN summit today. He adds the president warned the longer the delay in the conclusion of the COC, the higher the probability of maritime incidents. Panelo says the president thanked the crew of the Vietnamese vessel that saved the 22 Filipino fishermen abandoned in open seas after their fishing boat was rammed by a Chinese vessel in Recto Bank last June 9th. President Duterte returns tonight from the 34th ASEAN Summit in Thailand. President Duterte has agreed to a joint investigation on the June 9 Recto Bank allusion. In a statement, presidential spokesman Sal Panelo says the president welcomes and accepts the Chinese government's offer to jointly determine what really happened and find a, quote, satisfactory closure to this episode. The president proposes a joint panel. The Philippines and China will have a representative each in the body and a third member from a neutral country. Panelo adds a joint and impartial investigation will help resolve the issue, as probing the matter separately may raise speculations and accusations of bias. Key cabinet officials have earlier expressed openness to a joint probe with China, but Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin had initially opposed this. But former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno says the proposal for a joint probe between the Philippines and China on the Recto Bank incident is an act of overt surrender of Philippine sovereignty. Sereno says a neutral third party is needed only when there are two contradicting views. She notes both the Philippines and China have agreed the boat allision was a maritime accident. Senate Minority Floor Leader Franklin Drilon says the Chinese ship that ran into a Filipino fishing vessel in Recto Bank could be fined up to $1.2 million under the Philippine Fisheries Code. The code states the presence of a foreign vessel in Philippine waters is presumed to have engaged in illegal fishing. Aside from the fine, the government can also confiscate the catch, the fishing equipment, and the foreign ship. Drilon is also against the proposed joint probe into the controversial Recto Bank incident. He warns it could compromise the country's claim in the disputed West Philippine Sea. Former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario will soon have to revert to a regular passport. The Department of Foreign Affairs announced yesterday it was canceling courtesy diplomatic passport of its former secretaries and ambassadors. No other details on the decision were provided. The DFA failed to reply to questions from reporters, but in a statement, the DFA admits Del Rosario was carrying a diplomatic passport when he was refused entry to Hong Kong on Friday. It notes, however, that a courtesy diplomatic passport does not give immunity to Del Rosario as provided under the Vienna Convention. The former secretary earlier said the Hong Kong incident was a form of harassment and a violation of the 1961 International Treaty, which defines diplomatic relations among countries. But the DFA stresses that Del Rosario's diplomatic passport only gives him the usual port courtesies at the immigration ports abroad. In an interview with CNN Philippines, Del Rosario said he was still considering filing a protest on the Hong Kong incident. The former top diplomat was supposed to attend a business meeting in the Chinese Autonomous Region, but never made it.
I saw in the DFA statement that the diplomatic passport was legitimately issued to me, which is a happy development as far as I'm concerned, because there have been criticism from members of government that I misused the diplomatic passport, which the DFA does not agree with.
First on CNN Philippines, a Hong Kong lawmaker wants to bring to the Legislative Council the barring of two former Philippine government officials from entering China's semi-autonomous region. Last month, former Ombudswoman Conchita Carpio Morales was also denied entry to Hong Kong. Chinese legislator Ted Hui Chi-fung tells CNN Philippines the only possible reason the public can see in Hong Kong's decision is the complaint filed by the two former officials against the Chinese President Xi Jinping at the International Criminal Court. The Chinese lawmaker slammed the Hong Kong government for what he calls barbaric deportation of Del Rosario and Morales. He says Hong Kong immigration has become totally controlled by Beijing. He adds that it appears Hong Kong is no longer a free and open international city. You're in the newsroom on CNN Philippines. Thanks for joining us. The local showbiz industry, as well as fans, bid their last farewell to a screened legend. It's the last day of the wake of a renowned actor and director, Eddie Garcia. Our Chrissy Di Matulak now joins us live from the Heritage Memorial Park in Taguig. Chrissy, what can you tell us?
David, veteran actor Eddie Garcia never wanted a wake. He requested his remains to be quickly cremated when he dies. But friends and family decided that the passing of a movie icon should not be left unnoticed. For 3 days, people have been paying their final respects to the icon. Today is the last day of public viewing for the ashes of Mr. Eddie Garcia. And since this morning, fans and friends came to honor the late actor whose career spanned 70 years.
Very loving grandfather. Lahat kami mahal siya. Pero yun na nga, narinig niyo, very a man of few words, no? Totoo yun. Pero alam naming lahat, mahal niya kami at mahal din namin siya.
A mass is now being held, attended by the family and their closest friends. After this, a 21-gun salute will be accorded to Mr. Garcia, having served with the Philippine Scouts during the Second World War. After the ceremonies, the actor's partner Lilibeth will bring home the actor's urn. There is no word yet on the final schedule of interment. The family of Mr. Garcia thanks all the support they have been receiving in what they consider a most difficult time in their lives. We also spoke to Eddie's son, Erwin Garcia, who says he hopes that what happened to his father would shed more light on safety issues at production sites.
Nabali yung alam ko na comatose na siya. Because might be aggravated nung siya when he was retrieved, dapat may spine board and all. Well, in the movie industry, it happens.
David, some of Mr. Garcia's former colleagues in the industry who are now lawmakers also want to take a closer look on the safety precautions in production sites. We are aware that investigations are now being conducted on what really happened during the taping of a television series where Mr. Garcia was injured. But we can recall that a viral video shows that Mr. Garcia appeared to have tripped on a cable while doing a scene. There were also questions on how he was carried away for medical treatment and the absence of a medical team on set. Here's what Senator Lito Lapid has to say about this.
Pag-aaralan namin yan kung ano pa at kakausapin natin at magkakaroon na suggestion mga stuntman, mga director. Kamukha ko, ako fight director din ako, stuntman din ako. Yan, kailangan meron talaga safety.
David, Senator Soto and Mr. Eddie Garcia just finished a project, another teleserye at another station just a few months before the tragedy happened. David?
Thank you for the update. Chrissy Di Matulak reporting live from Taguig City.